Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Secretary, welcome. Thank you. Great to have you with us. I also am concerned about the perception that a lot of people have that the entire ag budget goes into production agriculture when about a dime of the dollar of agriculture actually supports the commodity title of the bill and conservation programs and other programs that actually directly benefit production agriculture. And I guess that's part of the job that we have in educating people, our colleagues included, about where that spending occurs. You only have to look across the country this year from the droughts that we've seen in the Southwest. You've got severe flooding in the Northern Plains, in the Midwest and the South, and of course you've got record-setting numbers of tornadoes in numerous states, and you realize the incredible devastation that natural and weather-related disasters have on millions of acres of farmland and to poultry and other livestock producers. And from any perspective, and it's been talked about a little bit, the effective risk management for agriculture producers needs to be one of the highest priorities that all of us, I think, have on this committee as we look into writing the next Farm Bill. But I did want to bring up an issue with you with regard to risk management that is a little bit more of an immediate concern, and that has to do with crop insurance, which is a critical feature of the safety net across the country, and especially in my state of South Dakota. And my understanding is that RMA is proposing a change specific to the prairie pothole region to existing rules effective for the 2012 crop year that basically would prevent planting eligibility for acreage that was not planted and harvested in at least one of the 3 most recent crop years using recognized good farming practices. This proposed provision has caused considerable concern in northeastern South Dakota. I fully understand that there may be prevent planting abuses that RMA is trying to overcome with this policy change. However, I also believe that this proposed change has the potential to cause financial hardship on many farmers in that area and in North Dakota and Minnesota who have not abused prevent planting provisions. Would you be willing to consider other alternatives to RMA's proposed change that would not allow continued prevent planting abuse, but that would still offer a certain amount of prevented planting assistance in those areas, assuming that prevent planting is an issue in 2012?
Senator, we're always willing to work with folks to try to get to the right solution. The key here is to balance the workability of the program with the integrity and the fiscal stability of the program. I mean, there are circumstances, unfortunately, where folks, because of the nature of their land, have had areas that have been, in a sense, flooded or ponds for an extended period of time who continue to receive crop insurance benefits when, in fact, they've never really, for a long period of time, been able to plant anything there. Right. So I think what we have to do is figure out how do we separate that circumstance from the circumstance where it occasionally occurs and people are losing potential income. I'm happy to work. Happy if your staff has ideas or thoughts. I'm happy to communicate those to Mr. Murphy. Happy to have Mr. Murphy come up and visit with you and your staff if you think that would be helpful.
Okay. That would, and we'd love to have that happen because there are, I think, legitimate circumstances in which, and I understand what you're trying to target here and fully support that, but there are circumstances, and our northeastern South Dakota is a good example of one of those where these rules have really, I think, gotten at farmers who are using recognized good farming practices. And frankly, in northeastern South Dakota, you have to understand, people have used the analogy, it's like pouring water on a pool table. It just kind of spreads out. The prairie pothole region is very flat. And we have hundreds of thousands of acres now for consecutive years that have not been able to be planted. And I don't think that the changes that are being proposed were directed at those particular types of producers. So I'd like to work with you and your staff if we could do that. Mr. Secretary, you know, one of the provisions in the 2008 Farm Bill, I shouldn't say one, I guess there were several provisions that provided incentives for beginning farmers and ranchers. And I guess I'm interested in knowing from your perspective as USDA Secretary, do you believe that the existing beginning farm programs administered by USDA have been effective, and do you have any suggestions for improving those initiatives or for new ones as we get into this next Farm Bill? I think getting into agriculture for young farmers today is very, very hard because of the capital requirements, the cost of farmland, and those sorts of things. And I'm curious to know what your assessment is of the existing programs and what your recommendations might be for other ones.
Senator, it's tough to to move the dial in this area with the limited resources that have been allocated to the Beginning Farmer Program. I would say that the monies are being wisely used, but I think we have to be a bit more creative. Yeah, when you take a look at the last ag census, what you find is that we had 100,000 new farmers in the category of very, very small operations, small acreages that basically finance or provide commodities to farmers markets, things of that sort. And we want to encourage that because that helps to repopulate rural communities. But when you look at production agriculture and look at the commercial-sized operations, what you found was that we had a net loss of about 40,000 producers. So, and if you combine that with the aging nature of farmers, average age 57, 30% of our farmers over 65, you look and you see that the trend line's not what it needs to be. So I think we need to figure out ways in which we can provide sweat equity opportunities for young people who want to get into farming. Perhaps it's the tax code, perhaps it's a state tax, perhaps it's income tax, some way, a process by which someone can work on a farm and as a result of that generates some degree of equity that allows them then to go to a banker, be able to have a proven track record, to have some equity, some collateral that they can use to allow them to expand their operation. I can't say that I have a specific idea today, but I just know that there has to be something more than what we're doing, because what we're doing, while it's okay, is obviously not bending that trend line in the right direction.
Thank you.